Pokemon Fire Red is synonymous with childhood and fond memories because many of us began our first adventure with this game, and even though we've played it dozens of times, we always find joy in revisiting it. Only this time, I decided to take a different approach. Since Viridian Forest is the first forested area introduced in the Pokemon series, I've decided to make this zone our stronghold. The reason is simple. It's the home of two of the most iconic bugs in the entire series, Caterpie and Weedle. My intention is to make them shine once again, even though they lack good stats and strong moves in the third generation. In addition to that, the franchise's mascot will join us in an attempt to beat this game using only 2 Pokemon from Viridian Forest. And to add an extra layer of difficulty, I decided to do this as a hardcore Nuzlocke, which means that if any of these 3 fall, they can never be used in battle again, among many other rules you can read about in the description. In the Pokemon League, we'll face major challenges like Lance and his flying types, but before worrying about him, we'll have to make it through the entire game. And our story begins, as always, in Pallet Town, where none of the starter Pokemon are relevant for this adventure. So we'll simply choose Bulbasaur to make our rival pick Charmander, which will considerably increase the difficulty of this challenge. First, we'll need to head toward Viridian Forest, where our dear friends are waiting for us. The first to appear will be this Weedle, who will be named Ariani. And even though she has a mild nature that increases special attack and lowers defense, which means she won't be dealing much damage, we're going to love her a lot. The second of our friends will be this Metapod named Kirito, who has a naive nature, giving him a boost in speed at the cost of his special defense. And finally, we'll have the franchise's mascot, who will be named Uriel, and has a lonely nature, which means higher physical attack and lower defense. With that, all the great ones have gathered to take on this challenge, which will be extremely difficult for them. Very little time will pass, because 2 of our 3 beloved friends will reach their final form even before facing Leader Brock. And this would be very easy and useful if the 2 weren't weak against the rock type. And on top of that, Pikachu can't even touch them because they're ground type. So we'll have to improvise and pray to the RNG god to be on our side, but not before going to find our rival and beating him with the help of these bugs to gain some confidence, which will be absolutely necessary for the big challenge. Trust will be our first name, and we'll face this trial very soon, because the battle for the first badge starts right now. Our chances are slim, but with some planning, I feel it will be enough. We'll start with a poison powder against his Geodude, while it wastes time using Defense Curl, which allows us to use Harden on the next turn. We trade a few hits from Geodude, which aren't too significant, because after using Harden 5 times, we're more than ready to finish off his Pokemon with a Confusion. As a result of this, we'll level up to 15, which gives us the opportunity to learn a very important move, Sleep Powder. Also remember that the level cap ends as soon as we start the battle. Since Onix is his second and last Pokemon, we'll start by using Sleep Powder and then spam Confusion. That's the plan. But my bad luck, as always, kicks in because it wakes up on the first turn and hits us with a Rock Tomb, which fortunately, thanks to our defenses, doesn't hit too hard. And now that it's going to be faster than us, it won't hit us with Rock Tomb anymore, since it's programmed to use a speed controlling move. So then we put it back to sleep, and a Confusion brings it down to yellow. On the next turn, another Confusion is enough to defeat this ground and rock snake and earn the first badge. After having to turn down this incredible offer for a Magikarp, we make our way through the entire Mint Moon, where we get a pretty useless fossil for the adventure, and with that, we quickly arrive in Cerulean City, where we don't waste a single second and face our rival Hamilton. And he'll start with his Pidgeotto while we send out Pikachu, who is faster and lands a pretty strong Thunder Shock. We take off about half of its health, while it only uses a Sand attack. On the next turn, it uses a Quick Attack that hits us quite hard, while we strike back with a second Thunder Shock that this time leaves it in the red. But since we know the move, since we know Quick Attack, it's more than enough to finish off his bird. Now his Rattata hits us with a Quick Attack, and while our Thunder Shock leaves it in the yellow, we can't stay on the field because we risk going down to a critical hit. So Kirito has to come in and take that Quick Attack, in order to then use a Confusion and finish off his Rattata, making Charmander the next one up. Then, the first thing we can do is put him to sleep and then use a Confusion that takes off about 20%. But, as always, all the odds are against me, and he wakes up and uses Ember, which takes off quite a bit. So now I put him back to sleep and use a Confusion that, fortunately, is a critical hit and leaves him in blaze range. But with a lot of luck, he doesn't wake up. So one more confusion will be more than enough. Now he'll never be a problem, so Beedrill finishes him off with a Fury attack, managing to defeat the rival for the second time. And we'll quickly go get the second badge, which is usually quite difficult. But with everything we have on the team, we can face Misty without any problem. She starts with her Staryu, which isn't faster than us, so we just put it to sleep, and after using a couple of confusions, it wakes up and uses the move Recover. However, that's not a problem because after a couple more attacks, we'll take down her first Pokémon, and next comes her ace, Starmie. It's faster than us and uses a pretty massive Water Pulse, but it doesn't matter because Sleep Powder lands. The best move is to send in Ariane while Starmie is still asleep. While in the first turn we use Focus Energy and get lucky, in the next turn, Starmie continues to sleep. We're able to use a massive Twine Needle. The first strike is a critical hit, and the second leaves her in the red. Misty will choose to heal, but this time our attack leaves her slightly in the yellow, and on the next turn, she wakes up dealing poor damage with Swift, so one more Twin Needle is enough to win the second badge. With the second badge secured, we visit Bill and help him with whatever he was doing with that Clefairy. Then it's time to face Litten Surge and his electric types, which theoretically shouldn't be a problem. We'll start with Uriel, whose plan is to take advantage of the fact that in the third generation, electric types can be paralyzed. While he decides to use Double Team, we respond turn by turn with Quick Attack until we force Surge to use his first Super Potion. Seeing the situation, I switched and sent out Ariadne, who takes a Sonic Boom. While we use Focus Energy, we keep taking damage from a Shockwave. When we finally manage to attack it again, it's left in the red and hits us, leaving us with only 28 HP. Then we finish it off with a Poison Sting. Ariadne is faster than his Pikachu, which has the physical defense of a spaghetti noodle and will go down with a single hit. Surge's Raichu does what it does best, spamming the annoying move Double Team. And when we finally manage to land a double hit, we leave it at half health and also poison it. And in this case, this gym leader uses a full heal, which I didn't remember gym leaders had in this game, but we get a bit unlucky and miss our attack, allowing Surge to hit us the next turn with a Shockwave that leaves us with just 6 HP. But we managed to land a hit on Raichu, securing the victory over him. After going through way too much unnecessary stuff, we finally arrive at Celadon City, pick up some tea first, and visit the Psychic Man, who gives us a very powerful move. And even though we don't have the staff, it could be important in the near future. And finally, inside the department store, Thunderstones are available, allowing us to evolve Uriel into his final form and complete our team in their final evolutions. And the only way to recover a bit of damage will be to search for the Twisted Spoon held by Wild Abras, with a 5% chance of it appearing. For the battle against Erika, the protagonist will be Kirito, who starts off against her Victory Bell, which withstands a boosted Psychic without issue, ending up in the yellow. And this one impacts us using the annoying Stun Spore. While Erika decides to heal her Pokémon, the first turn of paralysis prevents us from moving. On the second turn, she strikes again, and we also take acid damage that leaves us with 37 HP, before landing a Psychic that puts her back in the yellow. Another paralysis and an acid hit take us completely out of the fight. There was no choice but to switch to Ariane, who took some light damage from acid and also had her special defense lowered. But I had a plan B for this particular situation. So I went to Route 9 to get the TM for Aerial Ace, and with that we can finish off her first Pokemon. Tangela comes in immediately and takes a couple of Aerial Aces, which are more than enough. Her ace, Vileplume, is the last Pokemon to deal with. So taking advantage of our massive speed, we strike first for about 50% of its health, while it manages to land a Stun Spore. After taking some damage from acid, we don't miss with our flying type move, which leaves it in the red. And because we're at -1 in special defense, that last acid attack puts us in serious trouble. But despite everything against us, we still break through the paralysis to land the finishing blow and defeat Erika. Thanks to this, we finally gain access to a coverage move, Giga Drain, which we immediately teach to Butterfree, and it's the perfect solution to deal with an immediate problem, Giovanni. With this, we'll melt his first 2 Rock-type Pokemon, and finally, with the help of a couple of Psychic attacks, we'll defeat Kangaskhan, overcoming him without much trouble. At this point, it's important to look for the item finder because underneath the Snorlax, we can find leftovers, which, while not the best items, will give us some passive healing options. There's a tie in the highest levels between Sabrina and Koga, so we'll start with the latter, and our Butterfree begins by taking down his Koffing with a Psychic. His second Pokemon is Mach, which is first put to sleep, and then a couple of Psychics are enough to take it down. His next Koffing also falls quickly. And finally, his Weezing is put to sleep, and a couple of attacks later is simply erased from existence, earning us another badge. In Saffron City, we have another battle with our rival, as he finally has a full team with final evolutions. But even so, our Raichu is able to sweep through his Pokemon without much trouble. Ariadne also takes care of Execute and Alakazam thanks to her double attacks. Uriel uses Thunderbolt to finish off his newly evolved Charizard. Giovanni at this point isn't very difficult either, because we have enough coverage to deal with absolutely all of the Team Rocket boss's Pokemon, and that's enough to wrap up this arc on a high note. And for that reason, we can finally face Sabrina, for whom we only have 2 bugs, because Uriel is above the maximum level and can't be used. However, Kirito does his thing and puts Kadabra to sleep, while I take a risk and send out Ariadne, who will destroy Kadabra thanks to her Twinneedle, allowing Mr. Mime to be next. Another Twinneedle is enough to defeat the Mime Pokemon, which causes Alakazam to enter the field. Even so, at this point there's not much to change, so I don't have any other option. Their ace, Alakazam, decides to spare us by going for a future sight while we go for a Twinneedle that's enough to finish it off thanks to its fragile defense. And last is Venomoth, which has nothing to do with the Psychic type, but it will never be a problem, so after a couple of Psychic moves from our side, we manage to obtain the 6th badge. Since we don't have a clear answer to deal with Blaine, I decide to visit the power plant, where we find one of the key pieces if we want to succeed. That being TM25, which contains Thunder. And that's exactly what we need to prepare an electric cocktail. The battle with Blaine begins, and we send out Uriel, who is the one and only true salvation to deal with the bald Blaine. The reason is very simple, because Raichu can learn the TM for Rain Dance. So the first thing we'll do is set the rain on the field to receive a flamethrower from Growlithe, which, even though it's nerfed, lands as a critical hit and deals considerable damage. After recovering some HP with leftovers, we use the combo with Thunder, which under the rain will always have 100% accuracy. His second Pokemon, Ponyta, falls quickly to another Thunder, and with 2 Pokemon still left to defeat, we need to be a bit careful. Rapidash has better special defense and survives the Thunder with low HP and gets paralyzed. It only hits us with a stomp, but now a Thunderbolt puts Rapidash into the yellow while the rain ends. And that's reason enough to use the move again, while Blaine uses a full heal, and 1 turn later, Rapidash will also fall to Uriel. The last Pokemon will be Arcanine, his ace, and although weakened by the rain, we still need to be careful with this one. The first turn brings it down to yellow thanks to that Thunder, while it uses Takedown for a solid amount of damage. When the bald guy heals again, the battle is practically over, because just 2 more Thunders later, we've managed to win the 7th badge of the challenge. The boss of Team Rocket and final gym leader is our next target, so getting down to business, I decide to face him with my only solution, Kirito the Butterfree, who uses Giga Drain on his first Rhyhorn, which goes down miserably. In addition, I equipped him with a Miracle Seed that I got at the Celadon City Casino, which is enough to boost the damage in our favor. His second Pokemon faces more of the same, leaving Dugtrio, who has always been very fragile in defense, and is the reason why, with 3 hits, we'll have 3 kills confirmed. Nidoqueen is the next to come in, but she quickly falls asleep from a sleep powder, and while Giovanni decides to heal her, 2 psychic attacks later, we finish off Nidoqueen. The same strategy is now applied to the King, who will also fall miserably, thus granting us the final badge and access to the Pokemon League, where the toughest battles await us. And honestly, I'm surprised at how far we've managed to get with only 3 Pokemon. They tend to fall behind as the game progresses. Our first challenge and victim will be Lorelei and her ice types, for which we have little solutions. While I decide to start this battle with Rain Dance, her Dugong has other plans and sets up Hail on the field, which means it can use a free safeguard on the next turn. And although it's not that relevant because one Thunder is a knockout, the second one to enter the field is Cloyster, whose low special defense is overwhelmed by another Thunder. which is a bit more of a tank, could be a problem, but the move is just so incredibly strong that it even takes it down. And her second to last Pokémon, Lapras, falls miserably, leaving only Jinx. And besides the fact that the rain has ended, that's the reason we went for a Thunderbolt, which takes away half of its health. However, she manages to land a sweet kiss that puts us to sleep and then follows up with an Attract. Unable to stay on the field any longer, I send out Ariadne to take an Ice Punch, and on the next turn we're faster, and Twinadle finishes the job, giving us room to face one of the worst characters in the Elite Four history, Bruno and his Pokémon. And that's why I decide to send Kirito in first. However, his first Pokémon, Onix, is simply crushed and overwhelmed as if it were complete trash. Hitmonchan is next, but thanks to our high speed, we put it to sleep first, and a Psychic boosted by the Twisted Spoon takes off just over half of its health. But it's not a problem because it stays asleep, and another Psychic from our side finishes the job. This makes him send out Machamp to the field, so we can then put it to sleep and use the same strategy to hit it with Psychic. And although it also survives the hit, it's holding a Citrus Berry, which means it's just able to withstand the second Psychic. On top of that, we get unlucky as it wakes up and uses Rock Tomb, which we survive with just 2 HP left. There's no reason to stay in, so I send out Uriel while Bruno decides to heal Machamp, and everything is back to being even. While we set up the rain on the field, Machamp lands a Rock Tomb to lower our speed, which is a huge problem. However, we're still much faster, and a Thunder leaves it in the yellow once again. Meanwhile, for some reason, it uses Bulk Up, which means another Thunder is enough to take down his strongest Pokémon. With that, we bait out Onix, which is quite a big problem for Raichu. We know it knows Earthquake, so we can bait it by sending out Kirito, and fortunately this strategy works out for me. And on the next turn, we use a Giga Drain that restores around 60 health points. Last is Hitmonlee, who will fall asleep on the first turn, and while we switch to Ariadne, we take a Mega Kick that leaves us in the yellow, and with that, we're already in a lot of trouble, so I have to switch to Uriel, who once again takes a hit from the 70% accuracy move. And with not many options left, I go for a Thunderbolt that leaves him in the yellow. And once again, Hitmonlee lands a Mega Kick, ending the life of our yellow mouse. And even though he's been with us throughout the entire journey, it's time to say goodbye. It's time to understand the cycle of life and recognize that he gave it his all, and that we must carry on his legacy to improve and try to overcome this challenge. With that, Kirito is able to avenge his teammate and uses a Psychic that lets us defeat the second Elite Four member of Kanto. I still can't believe I lost a Pokémon to Bruno, but at this point, the challenge might as well be considered lost. We're out of options, but Orange Mama didn't raise a loser, and that's why I decided to give it my all against the rest of the Elite Four. Agatha is the next target, and that's why I have to be extremely careful, because this Elite Four member, who specializes in Poison-type Pokémon and not Ghost types, will start with Gengar. And even though it's incredibly fast, we're even faster and can put it to sleep, then use Psychic twice to take down her first Pokémon. The second is Golbat, which is also slower than us, and we can hit it with a Psychic that lands as a critical hit, which is more than enough to take out 2 of her Pokémon. Arbok is next, and since it's slower than us, we can put it to sleep and use the same strategy, which is enough to bring it down. Her second Gengar is indeed faster than us, but it miserably fails its Hypnosis, allowing us to land our move, thanks to the Compound Eyes ability, ensuring our sleep powder doesn't miss. After that, a Psychic attack will trigger its Citrus Berry, but since it's still asleep, it's easy to finish off with another Psychic. And finally, her Haunter is one-shotted, thus defeating the third Elite Four member. With this, we regain some much-needed confidence to face Lance and his flying types, for which we really don't have a solid counter. So, with heart and soul, we go up against his Gyarados, which we put to sleep on the first turn, and thus begins the Psychic spam, with a critical hit, leaving it in the red. And at last, we miss a sleep powder in this adventure, which greatly reduces any chance we might have had of winning this. It uses Bite in this battle, which does some damage to us, and we finally bring down his Flying Serpent. This prompts him to send out his Dragonite, and although we're able to put it to sleep and deal a decent amount of damage, it wakes up and uses a wing attack that's enough to take Kirito down. After that, Ariane faces her Executioner, who uses a Hyper Beam that literally obliterates our little bee. This causes us to fall, marking the end of our journey. which honestly surprises me considering how far we made it with such average Pokémon. So for me, this is a reason to celebrate and to walk away with our heads held high, saying that beating this in hardcore Nuzlocke mode is nearly impossible unless you have enough RNG. However, if you want to see how my last attempt at this challenge went in the Sinnoh region using only normal type Pokémon, you can click right here on the screen. See you until the next time. Peace!